Hi guys, I'm thinking of bringing hydrangeas in tomorrow, and I don't want you to freak out, all those little teeny tiny petals and flowers. So I thought I'd show you how I am going to paint this today. So there you can see in the distance on my dining room table a bouquet of hydrangeas. Here you can see I have drawn an outline of the big general shapes and some lines following some of the major shadows. I'm scrubbing in some of the shadow shapes. Here's the block in of what I'm painting, and now I am going to go ahead and mix 4 or 5 values for the major shapes. These are the major value groups that I'm going to work with. This will be the hydrangea leaves, so our darkest value that I'm seeing over there. This right here is the shadow color of the hydrangea clusters themselves. And this will be a transition color, and I probably will tweak this, but this will get us started. This is the color of the wood that the vase of flowers is sitting on. That will probably get tweaked as well, but it's a good place to start. This is a transitional color between the lightest part of the flowers, which is what this will be. And then notice that this is not white. We want to save our whites for later on, for those little teeny highlights at the end that make things pop. So this is a shade or two away from white. And so this will be a transition color from this color to this. So this is moving into the shadow of the flower, starting with the lightest part, slightly darker, and then deep shadow. All right, here we go. Okay guys, here it is, the block in. And believe it or not, sometimes this is as good as it gets. You would think you could refine something, but often those block ins are the best reading. So here's the, if you can see the hydrangeas in the background, a little contrasty back there, but get kind of a general idea. And I'm going to come in closer so you can just see how block-any this is. So I use those 6 colors that I showed you earlier. And I apologize, one of the colors I pointed out was actually not a transition color, but was the background color. Although, to be perfectly honest, I did use it a bit as a transition color because it seemed like a good idea. So here we go, looking down, you can see how I mostly kept those main value colors. A little bit of modifying here and there, but for the most part, they've maintained their integrity. I would like to say again, if I haven't already, to remember to treat your hydrangea flowers as spheres. Forget about all the little flowers that make up those spheres and just see it as a big white ball. And think about, how do we shade balls? And that will help simplify things greatly. Here we are at the next stage where I've gone into the large shapes of color and started tweaking them with different values and slightly different colors. And also another thing that I've gone ahead and done is I've gone into the edges of the flowers. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we often recognize things by their silhouette. So silhouettes of flowers is something you really want to pay attention to. So I've gone in and knocked out little bits, not with this particular brush, just thought this was a good pointer brush, but knocked out little nicks here and there, trying to keep it irregular because that's what makes things interesting. Since we painted the highlight section of our flowers with a value darker than white out of the tube, we can now go back with white that is tinted the color of our light, which my light has a bit of a pinkish tinge to it. So I tinted the white with a little bit of orange and yellow, which doesn't make red, but that's all right. And now I'm going back in and adding small shapes. See if I can do this while holding my camera, / phone. Adding teeny shapes to indicate those teeny tiny little flowers. And I have a smaller brush here for this. Thing to remember is less is more, and we don't want to lose all of that darker color, highlighted color that we originally put down. So it helps to squint at the flowers and see those little shapes. And then you can go ahead and, if you put too much on, you can go ahead and carve. I'll try to get in closer here. You carve some of that off with your brush. Sure to make those shapes irregular. Almost looked like we had 3 dots in a row here, so I need to definitely make sure I get rid of that. And go back and forth. And we can use the highlight color that we originally painted in the flower and move that down and add just a couple of those little shapes down below. And you'll start to see how that, amazingly enough, reads as petals. Woohoo! Let's go back in here and throw a couple in. Here is the final painting, at least for the moment. And I'd like to thank Dennis Perrin, who I've been working through his online workshop, and his emphasis on establishing those major value shapes and then working from those large shapes into smaller shapes as you progress. So I'll move in closer. You can see some of those small brush strokes, hopefully. And I apologize for the glare on the painting. It's amazing how those little shapes, once you pull back, they all pull together and start to read.